for our next segment, we have a panel discussion on manufacturing issues. And Dan and Anita are leaving us, and I think, who else do we have? Tom O'Reilly. Is Kathy Saint with us? Great. Come on up.
Kathy, do you have a microphone?
What's that?
Did you get a microphone?
There you go.
Okay, and Ken and John are going to stay. Mike Guger, Janet Prislow, and Pat McDonald. Would you join us, please?
It's here. All right, okay.
Do we have, I don't know if we have people in the right order. Let me see if I can do this. To my immediate left, Tom O'Reilly. He's an executive vice president of, as he mentioned, another multi-generation family manufacturing business, Bridgeport Fittings. Tom's actively involved in several roles in manufacturing business organizations to promote manufacturing and worker training and represents them at the state level. To his left is Mike Guger. Mike's the director of the manufacturing program at Housatonic, about which you have been hearing some things today. Mr. Ratzenberger and Mr. Lisk, we have already heard from. Kathy Saint is the president of Schwartel Stam, another multi-generation business that has called Bridgeport home for over 120 years. 135. Well, that's over 120, so we're in the ballpark. Janet Prislow is a partner at Blum Shapiro, which, as you can tell from our backdrop, may have had something with sponsoring this event. Blum Shapiro also needs no introduction, but I will anyway, the largest accounting and financial advisory firm to manufacturers in New England. And on my extreme left, Pat McDonald is the Senior Director of Conservation and Load Management at United Illuminating. So, I'm going to, in this segment, we're going to ask, I'm going to ask each of you questions, and we've talked about just having brief responses and then open it up to the panel for brief responses, and then we'll go on to the next question. And at some point, I may have to maintain time discipline. So even though if any one of you, it would be interesting to hear from any one of you for all the time we have available. John, let me start with you again. On numerous occasions, you've expressed your concerns about manufacturing in the United States and what you believe needs to be done to strengthen it. You've spoken to many United States leaders and manufacturers and interested parties for 15 years, and you say we're at a tipping point. If you had to pick one thing we all need to address right now, as soon as we walk out of this room, what would it be?
Try to steer the children away from the electronic entertainment and put them back in the sandbox. It's as simple as that, because children, we all learn tactily. Between birth and 5 years old is when the child is formed to become, the adult. And if you're entertaining them with electronic media all the time, basically you're raising a food processor. So you have to get them, and I'm a big fan of the sandbox in kids because you learn common sense. First thing you learn is don't eat sand. Right? But you've learned something. You know how it feels, you know how it tastes, you can shape things, and then they grow from there. Give them things to do. Let them function, because we have opposable thumbs, the human beings, and that's what sets us apart from the rest of creation. We got to use them, and not just for this.
Give them erector sets and Lego sets.
Well, yeah, the erector sets don't exist anymore, but scraps of wood, nails. When my kids were younger, somebody had a pool in the neighborhood. And Dad, how can we have a pool? So I got a shovel, dug a hole in the backyard, got the garden hose. There's your pool.
Yeah.
And they were 3, 4 years old, but they had a ball. Muddy, just covered in mud all.
They accomplished something.
They loved it.
Reactions, comments on that question from anyone else? That's fine. We have plenty of stuff to do. Ken.
Yes.
Your company's managed to thrive on the east side of Bridgeport for nearly 100 years. Hope I have that right. And you produce highly technical medical products that end up in hospital operating rooms around the world. How does a company like yours evolve to stay relevant, given changes in the world economy and social needs over more than a century?
Well, yes, it's 96 years, so yes, you're pretty much on par there. But you know, PEP Lacey started out as a tool company, a small tool company that made, we didn't actually make anything. We made tools for other companies to make things, particularly in the bearing industry. And then that evolved into making bearing components. We did that for many years. But it's continually looking at what you're doing and reinventing. You cannot rest on your laurels. You cannot just write out what you think you're good at. You have to constantly be scanning the marketplace. In the 70s, we saw a great opportunity in medical. We weren't doing any medical prior to that. And completely switched our company over. We do about 95% medical. We became experts in it. We worked very hard at it. But you have to stay relevant to the needs of, both of society in particular, and also what the economy is driving. So another 50 years from now, we may not be in medical at all. We may be making the thing that hovers the cars off the ground. I don't know. But constantly scanning your horizon for technology and looking at when incremental leaps are necessary in terms of change and when monumental ones are needed. And when you need to make that decision to make a monumental leap, you have to be prepared and make it. That's the way you exist. Otherwise, if you don't evolve, you disappear.
But then you have to be the one who thinks of the light bulb, whatever that happens to be at the time.
That's right.
Any other thoughts, since we have some people who represent long-time manufacturing entities, other thoughts on adaptation, Kathy?
If you look at Connecticut's history, most of the companies that are still here and have been here for a long time started out and then adapted through the years. And so like in the medical industry, material science is a really important thing, and staying connected with universities that are doing research. There's a material called nitinol. It's memory-shaped metal. It's used in stents for arteries, and the cool thing about it is you can make it, and then form it to a shape at a certain temperature. Then when you put it back into its original temperature, it'll change and go back to another shape. So they can stretch it out and make it thin, put it into an artery, and then once it gets to body temperature, it goes back to its original shape and fattens up and stays there. So that kind of thing is the kind of thing that Ken, in his business, has to be staying in touch with. How do you work with those kinds of metals? Where is their future? And that happens in every single business. Tom has the same kinds of challenges as far as material science is concerned and making better products. So we have to do that, or we're not going to be around.
I'd like to contribute.
Sure, go ahead.
In the fact that you listen to your customers, interact with them all the time, make sure that they're happy, and that's one of those important parts of the puzzle too. And certainly keeping close contact with your employees, making sure that they're involved, they're engaged, and empowering them. I think there's been a little bit of a management change in recent years there to help ourselves get better, get stronger, and never, as Ken says, rest on your laurels. You got to keep working. If the company's not making money, how are we going to, you want to beat the competition. And a lot of that's been focused on beating the competition. That's been the offshore entities and doing things smarter, faster, cheaper, better.
Okay, thank you. Question for Kathy. We talked about you
I have no idea.
being involved with a successful multi-generational family-owned business. You've been outspoken about what needs to be done when it comes to tax incentives for Connecticut manufacturers. As a small company, what are some of the struggles you have with the way current national and state tax legislation is written?
How many people in this room know what a sub-S corporation is? Awesome. That's very much not true in Hartford or Washington. And so most of the smaller businesses and manufacturers are structured as sub-S corporations, and the tax laws are different. The taxes flow through from the business to the owner's personal income tax. And a lot of the legislation that's written is written for C Corps, and there's no thought given to the fact that we are in manufacturing, the small corporations are the ones that are creating the jobs. We represent like 80% of the jobs in manufacturing, and we have different needs. So we were just talking about the need for R&D, that it's really important for us to stay competitive. Bead Industries, the guy who started it actually started, was it? Bryant Electric. And then he started making bead chain. Bead chain became a commodity. There was offshore competition from Korea, so Ken Bryant, who's a brilliant guy, decided, I'm not going to fight this. I'm going to go over there and make a deal with them. I'm going to show them how to make better bead chain. I'm going to be their distributor. Then what I've got to do is I've got to take this waging technology that I have in-house, and I've got to find a new application and market for it. Since he was already in the electronics and electrical business, he started using this waging technology to make pins, electrical pins, at very high tolerance and low cost. And so that was the rebirth for his company, which had gone through some really tough times, as all of us sitting in this panel have. Right now, as it stands in Connecticut, the R&D that costs that he incurred are not tax deductible to his business. But companies like Sikorsky, big C Corps, do get a tax deduction for that. And so this is one of the things that we have to constantly educate legislators about. Another example that's national is that there's organizations like NAM, National Association of Manufacturers, that I think most of the smaller manufacturers don't feel really understand us or represent us very well. And a perfect example of that would be a bill that has been passed in Connecticut, but that we're really struggling to get traction on nationally, and it's called the MRA, the Manufacturer's Reinvestment Account. So if you think back to the beginning where I said that the income flows through to our personal tax returns, wouldn't it be genius if we were able to set some of that aside and accumulate it over a few years so that we could make a big purchase that's strategic for our business, instead of having to scramble around and spend the money on things that are less strategic so that we don't end up giving half of it away to the government. The MRA is a bill that was actually thought up by Hugh McCann, who owns Identification Products right here in Bridgeport. And that bill proposes that small manufacturers be able to set aside, I think the original proposal was $250,000. I think they're now talking about $500,000 of income pre-tax. It must be invested in a local community bank. How great is that? It gives the banks money to lend to all the people in the community, so that's a win-win. You accumulate it for a few years, and then you can take it out and pay, I think the proposal was 15%, so that's what the hedge fund guys pay, who don't create jobs, don't, as far as I'm concerned, add a whole heck of a lot of value to our economy. But we would pay the 15% on that money, and we would be investing it in capital equipment, in training, and all of those things are part of the jobs multiplier that manufacturers represent. When I hire somebody, I'm not like, no offense, but an accounting firm where you're buying paper and copiers and things like that. I'm buying steel, brass, cutters, coolant, hiring consultants to come in, doing safety training, sending my employees off to school. I'm the jobs multiplier. I'm the one that's making the 3 jobs, 4 jobs to every one that I create. So, win-win. We went to NAM with it to see if we could get them to support us, and they talked to their members, and their board are mostly really big corporations, and the big corporations said they didn't really see a big value in it. We talked to Jim Himes, who's one of the smartest and best informed representatives that we have, And he said the same thing. And the reason is because they're coming from really big businesses. And Jim Himes put it perfectly. He said, it seems like companies would have better things to do with their money than stick it in a bank for 5 years, you know. But the truth is, we don't. We're manufacturers. We're not investment bankers. We don't have special brokers who can put our money in places and move it around and make money on our money. We just want to put it there and put it back in our business. It's that simple. But NAM doesn't understand that. Congressman Himes does understand it now and is very supportive of this bill, as is Blumenthal and the other representatives. Rosa DeLauro was on board from the get-go, because she always has been for manufacturers. But these are perfect examples of how legislators just have absolutely no understanding of the reality of our world as manufacturers and small businesses and sub-S corporations in particular.
Any reactions from our other panelists on the tax dimension?
Can I hear a true dat?
True dat, right.
Yes,
I was just saying, boy,
Other than
she knows
me
what
too.
she's talking about.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
afraid to say anything else.
There has been some additional legislative success in this past session in Connecticut, where the apprenticeship tax credits, which were aligned with the larger corporate C Corps, is now open to the S Corp entities. So, and
R&D?
LLCs, and so there's all sorts of.
But we didn't get the R&D, I
Not the
don't
R&D
believe.
yet. I know they're working
So-
on that.
Yeah, the
So
R&D
C
is
Corps
separate.
get R&D tax credits so that they can reinvest in their businesses. Ken Bryant from Beat Electric, Tom Moray, and Ken Lisk, and I do not. Makes no sense.
The other fact tied to that is that there are only in the range of 150 state apprentices in the manufacturing category, which is, you know, if we're looking at an aging workforce issue, there needs to be more workers trained at a Housatonic Community College, at the other educational
elsewhere.
institutions there that are doing technical skills, and to beef up that number so that there are more workers available for us in the future.
Well, the good news is we finally got a governor that's really listening to us, because all of us have been up in Hartford. I've been up there for 20 years, talking to various governors, and nobody's really put their money where their mouth is. And this Advanced Manufacturing Center here and the others in the state show that he really gets what we need. He did a walking tour when he was, you know, first elected, and he said that the thing that kept coming back to him, he kept thinking that everyone would be saying, we need tax breaks, we need this, we need that, and every single manufacturer he went in said, we need employees with the right skills. And so he heard us, and I think that's certainly gives me hope.
Let me turn now to Janet. Janet, you and I are the representatives up here of the mythical service
bean
economy.
counter.
Although I will say that I think, to the point John made earlier, I think service in service economy is a transitive verb. Without industry to provide the services to, we would have nothing to do. So those are our clients. But let me ask you this: Blum Shapiro is the largest provider of accounting, tax, and business consulting services in New England. How have you seen upturns and downturns in the economy impact your manufacturing clients and business strategy and investment?
Sure. And we're very well invested in manufacturing. At Bloom Shapiro in New England, we have over 400 manufacturing companies that we work with, and some of it is accounting, and tax services, but consulting as well, helping companies continue to grow and become more profitable. So I would say in the times of economic downturn, the focus that we saw with a lot of our clients was survival, really. Just, you know, how could they be more efficient? Unfortunately, that meant the loss of jobs. The focus was on technology that was already in place. How could these companies take more advantage of that to be more efficient, to survive in the competition that they were going through with less volume? The other areas continued to be R&D, looking for areas to research and development within their businesses to make sure they could continue to be competitive, look for diversification of their products, as you talked about, kind of keep up with what the market was looking for and how they could tie themselves to a variety of areas rather than being vulnerable in one sector of the economy. And honestly, I was really impressed. I think as a firm, we've been really impressed with the Connecticut manufacturers, how resilient they really were in the latest economic downturn. And as you say, the companies that are here, they're here for a reason. There's intellectual capital, there's family-run businesses, there's a lot of pride, and it's not something that you can just send off to China or Mexico that easily. So then when times got a little better, when volume picked up, I think our clients, what we saw was that there was a higher reliance on technology, advanced manufacturing. Unfortunately, meant not all the jobs came back. The jobs that did come back were higher skills. That's why we're here talking about this at the college. It's really important. And I think what we did a survey about a year ago, the manufacturers that responded to our survey in Connecticut said that 56% of them plan to hire additional employees this coming year, but 66% said that they were unable to find the skill sets that they needed, which we've been talking about, but those are some statistics we saw. So there's been a continued investment as the economy has come back in certain sectors to grow that population, to get the training to work with community colleges and other organizations to build those skills. The other area we've seen a lot of investment has been on exporting, looking for new markets for our products. Connecticut manufacturers, in our survey, said 79% of manufacturers were doing business internationally. And overall, I think the statistics that we saw from 2000 till last year was that exporting activities, not just manufacturing, but any areas of the business in Connecticut have doubled since 2000 to 2013. So it's pretty significant. I think people need to continue to think that way. We want to be the exporter, obviously, and that's where a lot of the focus has been on these companies.
Reactions from anyone else on the panel?
On the exporting piece,
Sure.
I lost a huge amount of business, my family's business, in the late 90s, early 2000s. A percentage of it has come back, but it's not come back to our shores, it's come back to Mexico. And so I'm doing a lot of shipping I make tools, so I'm kind of like you guys used to be. I make tools that decorate and form my customers' parts, and so I'm shipping probably mostly to Mexico, and then some in the U.S. And a little bit to Canada. So it has come back, but maybe not all the way back.
Patrick, let me turn to you now. Latest energy numbers show the U.S. is on a 25-year high for oil production and will soon exceed the production of Saudi Arabia. Natural gas production is at an all-time high. Do you expect energy prices to level off or drop, especially given alternative green energy technology growth? If so, what does this mean, or if not, I guess? Either way, what does it mean in terms of opportunity to expand manufacturing in the U.S.? What can we expect in the next 5 years?
So that's a pretty broad topic, but I'll take a slice at it. And it's true, U.S. has experienced an oil boom, but I don't know about you, but I haven't seen that at the pump when I go gas up my car. So I don't think prices are going to be going down because energy is a global commodity. It's traded worldwide, and people in Asia and Africa, they want to have what we have. They want to have cars and air conditioners and all those things. The one exception to there is natural gas, because it's hard to export and expensive to export. So natural gas is lower on a per BTU basis than oil would be. So natural gas is a real opportunity. But if you look at what's going on in Washington around climate change, and a lot of the weather patterns we've seen lately are linked to climate change, and one of the key contributors to that is carbon emissions, that it's critical when you shift to natural gas because it's a lower cost fuel, that you also look at efficiency of your operations, because you don't want to, first of all, waste the fuel, and you also don't want to have the environmental impacts associated with burning fuels. So having the most efficient equipment. And so one of the things we've done at the UIL companies, UI and Southern Connecticut Gas, is we've shifted our efficiency programs. We've provided rebates for lighting and air conditioning for years. Now we're looking more holistically, especially with manufacturers, to look at how they can make their business operations as efficient as possible, and not just look at the energy that they maybe are using, but also look at their waste streams and how can they minimize those, because those are expensive, and also their raw materials and their overall process, because if the process is more efficient, the energy utilization is also more efficient. It makes the manufacturer stronger. It helps their bottom line because it lowers their costs, even if the fuel is less expensive, and also helps the environmental aspects of of the company. So it's a win-win-win for everyone. That's where our focus has been.
For the manufacturer representatives on the stage, any thoughts on energy?
Just to comment, we've done several, we've worked with the UI on several projects, and it's been tremendous help. You know, there's a level of underwriting that's done, bringing in experts to streamline us. We end up with a higher quality product at a lower price or lower cost, not necessarily a lower price. And it's been a very good partnership. So I think the UI and Holdings has done a tremendous job of looking at the manufacturing sector and the energy that is used and finding a different way of helping the UI's needs and also helping the manufacturer's needs. So I just want to, say publicly thank you.
Thank you for that comment. And we realize that energy, all things in New England are expensive, right? Labor's high, taxes are high, energy costs are high. So we want to, and we've realized that for a while, so we want to focus on how can we be as efficient as possible so that maybe the cost per unit is higher than somewhere down south, but the overall cost for your energy is less because you use it much more efficiently. And that's been our strategy for quite a while.
Just a tangential thought, you're talking, we all know that there's no environmental protection agency in China, and yet 1/3 of California's air pollution, according to the Los Angeles Times, comes from China. The air currents go around, as we all know, and the ocean currents. And so in a way, it's a grand irony is when people tell you and force you of the changes you have to make in order to be energy efficient and clean. The word sneakers made in China that's contributing to the air pollution of the rest of the planet. But I haven't seen anyone anywhere in any press or government actually bring that issue up. Say, wait a second, because we're talking about the global pristine nature of the world, not just the United States. But no one's brought that issue up. So if you buy New Balance shoes that are made up in Massachusetts, then you can help stop air pollution. And will American
We're paying for it either way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
In environmental law, we talk about externalities and about how the cost of pollution is really, it's cost of doing business, but if you're not regulated for it, then everybody else ends up bearing the cost. Yeah. But to your point earlier about looking at that $3 t-shirt, all of these things are externalities of that $3 price. Not just the effect on jobs, but also the effect on the environment of pushing that off to a country that doesn't operate in compliance with our kind of norms.
With the manufacturing associations, the collaborative efforts, we've been working with the DEEP, Department of Environmental Energy and
Energy and environmental protection.
Yes, energy and environmental protection there. And also we're doing the prime, we've done a prime program event there, so productivity, thank you, allowed us to streamline our machines. But the regulatory effects are, Connecticut needs to be more sensible, and I think that there's some listening. We're at the table and talking about, ways to, get more compliance from all the manufacturing world and the people that are producing things there. So, and that involves looking at sensible regulation, because sometimes the regulation in Connecticut has made it more difficult to, the environment. It's been difficult for, say, new business considering coming to Connecticut because the regulations are tough, and they should be to some regard. We don't want to pollute, we don't want to ruin this beautiful state, but it's also more expensive, and it causes a lot of businesses from the outside to say, where do I go? Do I go to Rhode Island? Do I go to New York? Do I go to Connecticut? Connecticut's got that reputation, and so we're working to make it a better place for manufacturers so that more the regulatory environment, you'll get a second chance on, okay, you get a warning, and then you can look towards modernizing, making newer efficiency machines that will,
We want it to be based on science, number one. A lot of it is not. You know, there's a lot of pollution that actually comes down from Massachusetts into Connecticut. And there's a lot of focus on manufacturers when dumpsters in the back of shopping malls and things like that probably have a lot more bad stuff going into them. I think for the most part, the manufacturers I know are doing their very best to be clean, and we want to be environmentally responsible. So we want the regulations to be really based on science. And we also want, and I think this is improving, it's not there yet, but we want it to be a relationship like we have with OSHA, where they come in, and if they see something, and as long as it's not, you know, a life-threatening issue, they come in as an advisory capacity where they work with you and make suggestions, as opposed to coming in with gotchas. And I think each one of us here has probably got some pretty ridiculous horror stories from dealing with the old DEP. So the big improvements with SD, and I think hopefully they'll continue on with the new people, and we're working our best to get them to understand our world as well.
Just a couple of brief reactions. I think one piece of conventional wisdom is that the cheapest kilowatt is the one you don't use. And the cheapest ton of waste to get rid of is the one you don't generate. So that everybody seems to be very conscious of, you know, increasing efficiency, pollution prevention, things of that nature. But of course, if we want to save Long Island Sound, what we all should do is stop fertilizing our lawns. Don't get me going on that.
Well, but also,
That's the science I'm talking about.
the people making the rules are mostly theorists. I bet you there's not a fisherman in the legislative body in Hartford passing laws about the oyster beds and the fishing in Long Island Sound. But you're not one of them. But the theories are good, but in real life, it just doesn't work. You know, it just doesn't.
A topic we could spend a lot more time on, but let's move on to Mike.
Sure, I got time.
Mike? Mike Guger, you've been directing the program here. We've been hearing from folks about the future of advanced manufacturing. Give us some real-world perspective on this. We've got a 19-year-old recent high school graduate or a 35-year-old unemployed person who's repurposing for a new career. Enrolls in your program. What can that person expect in the way of options when he or she completes the Advanced Manufacturing Center certificate program?
The program tries to prepare them to be in service to these people who face all of these challenges. The manufacturers have their backs up against the wall with all that's been spoken of today: the pollution, the taxes, the skill sets, the technologies, the foreign competition. The students that we're trying to develop are the ones that can grow with these companies as this new resurgence of manufacturing takes place. We're positioning them with the technology, with the CNC that's been discussed, with the broad-based education that we're providing them in manufacturing. So it's not just running the machines, but it is the metrology aspects, the measurement aspects, the quality aspects, the lean and elimination of waste, finding ways to do it better, faster, cheaper. The state, in their wisdom, has allowed all of the advanced manufacturing programs, classroom work, to fold right into the apprenticeship programs so that they can continue with their education through the apprenticeship programs in the state into the manufacturers and expand that partnership between the schools and the manufacturers. Their options as far as their future is concerned are limitless. They can continue in the apprenticeships, they can come back for more education, they can expand their on-the-job training. This opens doors to them that many of them probably didn't even realize existed. The manufacturing program I feel my role up here today is to say thank you on behalf of a lot of these students, because the foundation has been doing a tremendous work with the Hall of Fame, which is going to help support some of these students. The manufacturers that are here that are going to hire these students, it's all just a tremendous cooperation that everyone benefits from, and certainly these new workers will benefit the most.
Reactions from anybody else?
I have two out of the program, one from each year. And the first one to come through, he's moved on to a toolmaker apprenticeship. So that's the path he's taken. The second one we've had for 60 days. Just reminded me of that the other day. And we've been evaluating him for his skill sets. Most likely he's going to move into a toolmaker apprenticeship. So as I'm trying to keep my CNC machines going, I find that I'm moving these people that are coming out into higher skills. And it's part of that whole stepladder piece. You can get off wherever you want. And for these two individuals, they wanted to continue. And having the second one, the one that started this year, just recently, straight out of high school. So not knowing how to use a rule or any measurement equipment or any type of manufacturing equipment within the duration of the program, which is not, and for parents looking at 4 years versus a year and starting a good career that has growth, and again, walking out with college credits, it's just tremendous. So the students can take it where they want it. And I've had some very good results coming out of the program. And I think each of us have.
I have a guy that I hired from the program, and one of the things that we've communicated to the schools, is exactly what John was talking about earlier, which is, critical thinking skills. And, any one of us, if we see on hobbies at the bottom of a resume that somebody works on their own car, they go to the top of the pile. And so one of the things that we've communicated to the program is that we really want the kids to have good critical thinking skills, and that CNC is great, but the thought process that happens before you put something into the CNC, as far as how you're going to rough out the blank, and it's probably going to be on a manual machine because that's just faster and quicker, and how you're going to set things up, and are you going to build some kind of fixture to hold it and everything. That's the part that is missing, and that's the part that goes into what we call a real tool maker, as opposed to somebody who's just a machinist and going to sit there and push the button. And there's still a tremendous need for that, and you can't find a tool maker around here for love or money. So we've got to grow our own, and the fact that he's got two makes me very jealous. But those problem-solving skills are the piece that we've been missing in the last 10, 15 years when we've hired, and that's what we're working with the program to stress is really important.
Yeah, I'd like to thank all of the Industrial Advisory Committee members that have been helping to guide the program. The growth of the program and the direction of the program requires their input, and again, thank you very much. Actually, Kathy's employee, his brother came through the program in the second year, and so we're starting to see this kind of legacy start to develop, and the word is getting out. So the growth of the program and its value into the community is expanding every year. The skills that these students come out with are not, they're entry-level skills, maybe a little better than that. We hope it's a little better than that. We strive to make it a little better than that, so that these students can float to the top of the pile and get hired. And so the reputation of the program can grow, and it just starts to snowball. It's exciting time right now. There's been challenges, but there's been some great successes as well. And I want to just emphasize one small thing. We talk about the kids coming in, and they're not Some of them, certainly high school kids coming out of high school, but I've had students as old as 62 years old coming in and reinventing themselves, trying to find new opportunities in their lives. So it really does cut across the spectrum. And it's been, again, very exciting, very, very rewarding.
We used the word opportunity a lot in setting up the program this morning, and clearly that goes to that, but I can't help but resist can't help but observe that it sounds like somebody coming into this program has the realistic prospect of having the manufacturers on this panel eventually fighting over that person. So that's not a bad,
The brother that,
courteously, of course.
the
There's
brother of
also-
my employee got hired by a company down in Stamford, who then
right.
hired 2 more. So there's 3 that they've snapped up.
It's true. I was there yesterday, and they're all doing tremendously well. I'm very proud of them.
There's a responsibility beyond taking them from these advanced manufacturing programs and working with them to continue the development. So it's not just a job, it's a career. And
Well, the other thing that hopefully we can get this message out more broadly is that your companies are interested in investing in people to bring them along.
it's
I've been
not just
sending
to
my
buy
guy
a
back for
machine,
classes.
Invest in
Yeah.
a person, you
Right.
invest in a machine, you're going to put money towards both.
Tom, let me turn finally to you. I'm going to just give you an open-ended question. We've heard a lot about movement in the state capitol to address manufacturing concerns. What are some of the, from your perspective, what are some of the significant issues being addressed or not addressed?
Well, I think we've been addressing education on a whole. That's ongoing. And I think Kathy and Ken and there's other associations that we're collaborating with, Marna, that we're working together to put our heads together and look at issues, and most of them are education-based, but they're also tax-related. There's looking to help not just, mostly the smaller manufacturers. Those are the ones that don't have the ability to hire and buy new machinery. They need some support. So I think our efforts have been, one, to work with the education system and make that stronger, and getting funding for that to help take employees that maybe been working in other places there. So there's been step-up programs and things like that that we're trying to get the word out to not just the people that are on the committees, but to the people across the spectrum there. So we've been working and meeting with our legislators. We have, I know there's some, the Senate's in session right now, but we have to get active and keep in close contact with state legislators and even the MRA bill that's down. We're trying to see that gets traction down in Washington as well. So apprenticeship, the R&D tax credits, and education.
We collaborate with a lot of different organizations. We're all members of the New Haven Manufacturers Association. Some of us are also members of the Smaller Manufacturers Association in Waterbury. There's MAC, also in Waterbury, which is statewide, that does manufacturing advocacy, and then CBIA, and then Precision Metal Association. I'm president of the Metal Cluster. And so we all work together to go up to Hartford, because we're small, and so we're not going to have a voice like a UTC company would. So we go up all together and talk about these things and try and get them to understand the value that we bring. And so the education piece, we feel like we've gotten listened to. We feel like we've gotten listened to with the environmental issues to a degree. The governor I actually had to move my business a couple of years ago, and so I got a low interest loan from the state And it was at a time where I really wasn't going to get good, affordable help from the private sector. And so I got it from the state and was able to move the business and also buy a key piece of equipment that helped me to leverage the business into some new markets. So there's a really strong partnership between us, between the governor's office certainly, and manufacturers and some of the legislators. There's a new manufacturing caucus up there that gives us a little hope. It's kind of creaking along, but I think it's going to gain momentum, and so I think that we've got certainly the best relationship that we've had in I would say probably the last 20 years with the local government.
Any other reactions on legislative priorities? Okay, with that, I think I'd like to ask you to join me in thanking our panelists